Good evening, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes, and also we've posted the query form in the chat. So anybody who has any issues or queries can please fill the form and let us know all your problems. Good evening, everyone. We're expecting more people to join. By then, we'll just start with the session. So, welcome back, all of you, all the brilliant minds joining us from across India and around the world. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you all for the second session of the Global Entrepreneurship Bootcamp 2025 from Idea to Venture, proudly organized by Hult Prize IIT Bombay in collaboration with Hult Prize India. So, to begin with today's session, it is my privilege to welcome Visat Patel, who is an experienced founder with a demonstrated history in the environmental industry and renewables. We would love to hear more about you, sir, in your own words. So, today's session will be about customer and market validation, where we will get the opportunity to understand who our target users could be, validating our assumptions, and also building solutions that truly create impact. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to be presenting today. So just to kickstart, I would want to have this session in a very friendly manner, wherein rather than talking about theoretical aspects, I would like to talk about my personal experiences and what does things actually turn out to be when you go out on the ground. Okay. So I'll just quickly share my screen and then probably we'll start with the initial thing. Uh, you can post your questions, whatever you have, in the chat, and I'll try and answer them while doing the presentation as well as at the end of the presentation. Okay, so now the session is around validating validating your problem and the solution. And I believe you guys have also been given an assignment. So I'll try and cover all the topics so that you are able to complete your assignment and make it a lot more meaningful. So just a quick introduction. I am the founder and CEO of Ubiqedge Technology, wherein we are working in the space of AI and IoT. And prior to this, I have had experience of running a business in renewable energy sector, wherein we were designing solar inverters. I failed in my first venture, but again, there were a lot of mistakes that I could identify, and those are the mistakes that I've tried and correct in the new venture. And probably I've been looking at a lot of improvement in the whole process. So I would love to talk about my mistakes as well as the corrections and how those have been helping me out with the current venture. Okay, so now talking about validation, why validation matters more than building. As early founders, it's a typical problem that you fall in love with your product or you fall in love with a problem which is hypothetical or just in your mind. Okay. And believe me, most of the startups fail because of the wrong problem identification, not because they were not able to build the product. Okay. Building the product is the easy part, but then identifying the right problem and then solving it in the most appropriate fashion is the tougher and the most important part. So what all we are going to cover in this session. So again, I tried and synced it with your assignment as well. So firstly, we'll be talking about defining the customer persona or the user persona. Then we'll talk about hypothesis, then the script for the interview, how to conduct your interviews or a validation discussion with your possible customers or users, what insights to extract out of those kinds of conversations, the fit of your solution that you're proposing, and the willingness to pay by the customers. And then finally, whether to pivot or to proceed. I cannot emphasize any more on the fact that do not fall in love with your product or solution. Look for the insights that you get from the market, and then proceed or pivot accordingly. And again, all these steps are defined in a very specific order. I would recommend that you don't miss any of these steps. These are very essential, but again, they'll be very helpful down the line. So now talking about the customer persona, or let's say the early adopters. Okay. And as founders and looking at the Shark Tank pitches, uh, looking at investment news, typically we tend at talking about large market sizes. Okay. For example, if I talk about AI and IoT, I can say that, hey, it's a multi-trillion dollar market. But then would that excite anybody? No. Um, and when I say that I'm working in this field of AI and IoT and it's $1 trillion market, most of you won't be able to realize that what do I actually do? What is the problem that I'm trying to solve? And I'll have to talk about the problem in a way that everybody can understand, not only engineers or coders, but everybody can understand. Okay. So now when you look at your early adopters, you need to define what kind of people have to be approached. Okay. And why am I saying this? Because let's say you talk to a friend and the friend appreciates the idea a lot. And let's say you're building something into the legal field and your friend is an engineer working in a financial company. Okay. He might love the idea that you're working on, but then he's not your user. So even though he or she praises your idea, it means nothing for your business. So don't try and look for false praises. Okay. So again, the whole point being, early adopters are not the people who like your product. They are the people who are currently facing the problem which your product is solving. Okay. So now I'll talk about an example from my company, my experience. We deliver IoT solutions to fulfill a government compliance. Our users are industries or let's say commercial establishments who extract groundwater via bore wells. Now, who is my customer or who is my user? My user is a compliance officer in those companies or commercial establishments because he or she is the person who's facing the issue of fulfilling the compliance. And if the compliance is not fulfilled, there are certain fines which the compliance officer has to take care of. So, um, in my customer persona, I'll say that the customer persona or the person who is a compliance officer at a certain type of industries or commercial establishments uh, wherein they use groundwater. That is my customer persona. And why is it very critical to define the customer persona? Because it will help you target rightly. So today, I think it's very easy to run Google or Meta ads. Okay. And you can spend lakhs or crores in those advertisements. Whereas if you have a defined customer persona, you'll tweak your ads in a way that the relevant set of people get a chance to look at it. So it doesn't matter if your posts have reached, let's say, 1 million people, but then let's say only 10,000 of them are the actual users. So your efficiency is very bad. Whereas if you have a very defined customer persona, you'll target your ads in a way that it reaches only 100,000 set of users, but then those are the people who are actually your possible customers. So defining the hypothesis for the problem that you're trying to solve. Again, I'll try and simplify this with a validation formula. Your value deliverance is a simple multiplication of the pain point that you are solving, how big that problem is. That problem a very simple pain or a moderate pain or a high pain. Then the cost which the customer or the user will have to bear if they don't solve this problem. And then the urgency. Okay, so let's say there are certain tasks or certain products which are required immediately, and there are certain things which are required. Maybe it's okay to get them in a month's time or an year's time. So that defines the urgency. If any of this factors is zero, then the value that you are delivering is literally zero. Okay, so again, I'll try and talk about example in this case. So when I talk about solving the compliance issue for industries, they typically spend, let's say, more than 10 hours a week to manually create a database of how much water is being extracted. So it's a high pain activity. Now, talking about the cost, if they don't fulfill the compliance of submitting the consumption data rightly, they're looking at fines up to 10 lakh rupees. So the cost factor is high. And urgency, the government authority has already released the mandate and they're actively doing raids across industries to identify whether someone is fulfilling the compliance or not. So it's a very uh, immediate problem. So eventually, if I'm solving this particular problem statement, the value deliverance is very high. Okay. So I'll give you an example. So we were working with one of the largest industries in India in cement sector, and their statement was very simple that, sir, we don't care what you deliver. This is a government compliance which has to be fulfilled. Uh, the cost is, let's say, 2 lakh rupees. We are happy to give you that because we'll consider that this is a cost that we're bearing to fulfill the compliance. We don't care how you do it. Okay. So with you, I'm talking about AI and IoT, but then the customer doesn't care whether it is AI, IoT. What they care about, that is their problem solved. Okay. Simple. If you say that, yes, I'll solve your problem, period. There's no further necessity about talking about your technology, how superior you are, so far as you're solving their problem. Now, again, we talked about defining a customer persona and the value that we're trying to deliver. So, market research is a very essential activity while working on your venture, but then we often miss out because of the awe of the product that we're trying to build. Okay, so I'll give you an example of my previous venture. We were trying to build a solar inverter, new solar inverter architecture, and in our minds, we were building the power wall in a much more superior version of Tesla's power wall. Um, we built for literally 4 years with zero revenue. We were burning money and yet in the hour that, wow, we're building such a fantastic product. Once the product is launched, I think everybody will buy it. We didn't know sales. We didn't understand sales. We missed out on the very important factor that what I think doesn't matter. What a possible customer thinks is the fine line that has to be met. Okay. So it is very important to talk with your possible customers, talk with the people in the market before you even start building your product. Okay. So get out from your seats. Don't make an habit of the sitting in your AC rooms. Rather go out, talk with the customer. A mobile app, you'll have to talk with your users, meet the users, talk about their problems, listen more, ask the right questions, and don't create your questions in a way that you'll end up getting answers that you want to hear. Rather, ask very simple, open questions wherein you get the correct feedback, because the whole point of customer interaction is not to get the feedback that, hey, you're building something great. No, you want to understand their problem. You want to understand how they're trying to solve those problems right now. What is the kind of time and cost that they're bearing to solve that problem at this given point in time. Okay, so some simple questions that I just built up for you guys is, walk me through your last compliance audit. Okay, so they'll just uh, tell you about their whole process. And again, the interactions are not something that you'll easily get answers from your customers. You'll have to make them feel comfortable. You'll have to make them feel that possibly you will add value to their lives or to their work. And then they'll start talking openly with you. Then ask about what broke or what went wrong. So they'll try and talk about different approaches that you have used and what worked, what didn't work, the current problem in hand that they have. So the whole objective is to identify and uncover actual pain points, not polite opinions. Now talking about what not to ask or how not to ask in these interviewing scenarios. So don't ask questions which will lead to biased answer. So let's say if you ask a question wherein you say that, don't you think that compliance is hard? You're forcing them to answer in yes or no. If you're forcing them to answer in yes or no, you'll not get the context behind those answers. In this case, the context is very crucial. Then you're too eager to talk about your product because, as I mentioned, all the early founders are in the awe of their own product or their own creation. So you will just in the beginning itself, you'll start talking about, let me show you my app. These are the features and everything. That's a very big mistake. You will miss out on the insights that are very essential for the existence of your business. Okay. Do not ask binary questions. That is the do not ask yes or no questions, and don't ask hypothetical questions that will you pay. Okay. Future promises means nothing. Having the money in the account for a purchase made by someone is the actual sale. Just future promises means nothing. Okay. And now again, a simple example. If you go and ask your mom that, hey mom, how am I doing? How do you like my idea? Your mom is always going to say that, but it's a very nice idea. I'm very proud of you. But then your mom is not your customer. Okay. So again, don't try and hunt for compliments. You want to hear the bad things about your possible idea or the possible methodology that you're using. And those negative comments would actually help you build the right thing. So again, what to look for in the interviews? So again, asking the right questions and everything, but then what to do out of the interviews that you carry out. You have to try and bucketize the reviews and the extracts that you get out of those interviews and categorize them into different buckets so that you get to identify that what the actual problem is or which are the top three problems. Okay, so let's say there might be 10 different problems in the whole problem that you're trying to solve. But then if you end up solving the top three, I think you're good to go. And then you will get time, you're buying yourself time to solve the remaining problems. Okay, so I try and look for the repeated pain points that multiple people had talked about during the interview process. Okay, if someone says that, okay, there's a problem and we have been trying to use Excel sheets, for example, in our case, people are trying to maintain Excel sheets by manually inputting data about the water consumption. I think that's a very good sign. Wherever there are manual processes, repeated processes involved, if you're going to automate that, it's a great insight that, okay, this is where people already are. They have identified the problem. They are somehow trying to solve the problem, but then again, they're yet struggling. Okay. In the initial goal, you don't know at what price to sell your solution, service, or product. Okay. So while you're doing the interview process, uh, try and understand the cost of the problem. Okay. So, for example, in our case, sir, what is the cost that you'll have to bear if you don't fulfill the compliance? There are two major answers that we received. Sir, we're looking at fines of anywhere between 2 lakh to 10 lakh rupees. One of our known companies just had to pay 5 lakh rupees. So there is a number to that. Second, if we don't fulfill this and if there is a government intervention in the whole process, we'll have to shut down our manufacturing plant till the time our compliance is fulfilled. So now you know the severity of the problem, and there is a price tag to the problem that we were just thinking about. Okay, so this helps me in creating a pricing strategy for my product. And then if I am the first one in the market, I can always say that, okay, you're going to lose 1 lakh rupees, pay me 10% of that, and I'll solve your problem. Okay. So if you are the early mover, you can create your pricing strategy, let's say, basis the impact that they're facing. Down the line, the market again adjusts itself depending on the competitors coming in, and then who is the best one, who's the most affordable one. But again, these interviews will be very helpful in defining your pricing strategy. And then look for small emotional triggers that सर बहुत प्रॉब्लम होता है हमें बार बार एक्सेल शीट बनानी पड़ती है मेरा कंप्यूटर बिगड़ गया था फिर सारा डेटा उड़ गया मेरे बंदे ने गलत डेटा भर दिया मिस्टेक हो गई उसकी वजह से मुझे फाइन लग गया so look for those frustrating points and then all of a sudden it gets into a page that sir this is an automated process that we have created there is zero chance of any error in the data entry there are no reminders required the report is auto generated and we will ensure that the problem is solved. Yeah. Then look for the hidden stakeholders. that if someone says that, okay, I'll have to talk with my uh, procurement manager, or I'll have to talk with my finance head to get a yes on this, that helps you identify the decision maker. So your user might be someone on the shop floor of a company, or let's say a kid if you're building something for kids. But then who's the decision maker in that case? Either the purchase manager in a manufacturing plant or a parent in case of kids. So identifying the decision maker is very critical. You should know who your user is. You should know who's the decision maker to ensure that your product or service is sold at that particular location. Okay, so now I think we'll talk about defining a problem statement. Okay, so I have, in fact, myself made that mistake a lot of times, wherein I talk about, hey, I'm trying to build an AI and IoT hardware and software wherein we are helping companies with real-time monitoring data with those fancy dashboards. People understand nothing out of this. Okay. Most of the interactions are with people who are not even engineers. Even my batchmates from IIT Bombay, if I talk about my technology, they'll somehow not be able to relate to it because it's not useful in their day-to-day lives. So how do I make this simple wherein I talk about my problem statement and the opposite person understand irrespective of whether he or she is part of that problem statement or not? So there are four aspects while you're defining your problem statement. One, who is your specific user? Second, what is the pain that we're trying to solve? Third, what is the cause for that pain? And fourth, what is the consequence if that problem is not solved? So in my case, the compliance head is my user as I defined in the customer persona. The pain is massive penalties that they'll have to bear if they don't fulfill the compliance. The cause is unreliable manual processes wherein they end up making mistakes or they at times miss out the whole process altogether. And the consequence is the risk of, again, being fined by the government or the factory being shut down. Okay. So my problem statement becomes simple. Compliance heads are feeling anxiety about penalties because of unreliable manual logs, which leads to financial and operational risk. Uh, I want you guys to try this out for your thing and talk with a person who's not from the industry that you are trying to cater to. If that person understands the problem that you're trying to solve, that is the correct method of defining your problem statement. Okay, so again, it's a very common mistake where we get too much invested into the idea itself and we talk as if everybody else in the world would understand what we're trying to work upon or what our solution is. But then believe me, 99.9% of the people you talk with will have no idea about the solution, tech, service that you're trying to build or how to solve that or what the actual problem is. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Uh, while I was working in the renewable energy industry, solar PV, uh, we thought that, okay, the features of the solar inverter will excite the end users or the bungalow owners and will help them with insights, analytics, and everything. But then the reality was all they care about is saving their energy bills. A lot of customers, okay, sir, we want to install solar so that we can use air conditioning throughout the day and we don't have to pay the bill. So in reality, they don't care what you're installing on the rooftop. Even if you install a nuclear power plant on top of the roof and give them free electricity, and so far as that is okay legally, they're fine. They don't care. Okay. What a customer cares about is their problem being solved, not the details about how you solved it. Okay. So again, talking about the solution hypothesis and the point that I was trying to make. Don't propose features, uh, or rather talk about the outcomes. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, let's say in my case, we have an IoT product with A3 chip from Apple with, let's say, 512 MB RAM. It has AI inbuilt with the device. The customer is blank. Okay, rather, sir, we will take care of your compliances without any hassle. Simple. Nothing has to be talked about. Or let's say if you are looking at kids as your target sector and wherein you're trying to build in something new. Uh, if you talk about, sir, we will teach your kids about how to prepare themselves for AI era that is coming up, and we will use this methodology to teach your kids. Rather, sir, will prepare your kids for this, and they'll be able to do this. They care about the outcome. So focus on the outcome while you talk with your customers, not about the features of your product. So I think here comes the important topic of defining your MVP. That's your minimum viable product. Okay, so minimum MVP is not a half-finished product. It's rather a small experiment which proves value to the customer. Okay, and again, this is a very common mistake that I've seen across founders, across different sectors, that everybody is running after the perfection or the perfect product, the perfect solution, the perfect app, or the perfect website, the perfect supply chain and tooling in place. Uh, but again, the market changes very fast. So rather than running behind perfection, make something very simple, something that you can do probably in anywhere between 1 weeks to 8 weeks. Launch that out, give it out for free initially just to test out how people feel about it. And if the problem is being solved, I think that's success. And then you'll start getting more interest from new possible users or new possible customers. So then at that point, you will have money coming in from the customers. Revenue is king. So you'll have revenue coming in. You'll have money to improvise your product, take it to the point you wanted it to be. In my case, what we're trying to build is we're trying to build an AIoT operating systems using which we want to simplify IoT for everybody, engineers, non-engineers, technicians, wherein we're building a completely new operating system. It's a very intense task. Do I have that today? No. Uh, but what I have today is a very minimum viable product, wherein we have an IoT device, we have a software, we have a problem statement in hand, and we're solving that problem statement so well that today, apart from our initial core case of just solving compliances, we are turning out to be leaders for water facility digitization across India. Okay. So a small start with something very minimal in place, we could start interacting with the customers. We could start selling our product and services. We start getting in revenue. With that revenue, we were able to scale our team. We were able to scale our products and operations. And today we have the whole uh, firepower to proceed in the direction where we intend to. Now comes the money part. I think and again, I also felt very happy when people used to say that, hey, I think this is good. And I would have asked that, would you pay for this? They would say, I think, yes, we'll pay for this. But then now I realize that that means nothing. Okay. Then comes in scenarios wherein, again, I've seen a lot of friends, a lot of fellow founders being happy that, hey, we have deployed our solutions or service or product at this XYZ MNC and they're loving the product. But then the question is, are they paying for that? If the answer is no, it's a red flag. Okay. So willingness to pay is a very critical aspect that you all will have to look at. Okay. So don't ask, would you buy this? It's again a hypothetical question that I talked about earlier. Rather look at their current behavior. So now you want someone to pay for something superior that you have built, and it actually solves problems for them. So you can start with certain anchoring questions like, what do you pay for the work around today? कुछ ना कुछ तो जुगाड़ कर रहे होंगे ना वो लोग एक्सेल शीट वाला ही कर रहे हैं so in that case we realized that they had to keep a particular person in charge who would go down to all the water meters on the bore wells, take readings, then manually enter it into Excel sheets. So their cost is the salary of a person on a monthly basis. and then also bear the risk of the mistakes that the individual is going to make. Then talk about again what happens financially if this problem continues. So the answer is simple: the salary into 12, that's their yearly cost to that. And eventually, who has the authority to approve this budget? So that's the decision maker that you have to identify. Your user would be different, the buyer would be different. Okay. So now the willingness to pay again is a simple formula. The intensity of the pain, the budget. Now, in this case, I know that the salary of a typical employee who's going to do this task, let's say, is 25,000 rupees a month. So they're looking at 3 lakhs of budget per year for this, and the urgency of solving this problem. Okay, so they're bearing 25,000 rupees every month. So in the back of my mind, I know that if I'm giving them something for 25,000 rupees with an yearly AMC of 5,000 rupees, it's definitely a no-brainer, right? And the only problem that I need to solve is identify who is the decision maker and who's going to pay me for that. Okay, so I have discussed everything with the user, and then I'm talking with the decision maker that, okay, sir, we've talked with this, your team, these are the current costs that you're bearing. We propose this, and these are the costs that you'll have to bear in our case. So willingness to pay is a very important aspect that you'll have to think about very early on while doing those interview questions, because pricing is again a very crucial thing which everybody struggles in the initial days. So the scene is simple. If the problem is big, the money you will make out of it will be big. So now talking about the market size, as I initially mentioned, don't look at those market research numbers wherein, okay, it's $100 billion market or $1 trillion market. Okay, good for you, but then are you going to serve that complete market? No. So typically the market is defined into TAM, SAM, and SOM. Okay, total addressable market, uh, and then serviceable addressable market on serviceable obtainable market. Okay, serviceable obtainable market is something which matters the most. Okay, now typically this is something that you face while talking with the investors as well. Believe me, what is respected more is realistic numbers with tangible methods of calculation. Okay, so let's say I might talk about the groundwater digitization market is an, let's say, $500 million market. The opposite person doesn't get any feel of it. Rather, I'll say that there are 5 lakh industries across India which fall under the compliance of, let's say, the government of India, wherein they need to implement this smart digital method for data collection of water consumption, out of which only 5% companies have so far deployed this, and the government. So my market is, again, let's say 4 lakh 50,000 or 5 lakh industries. And let's say my solution is 10,000 rupees. So 5 lakh into 10,000 rupees is my current serviceable obtainable market. Such calculations don't only give you clarity, but then it will also help investors understand about how clear have you understood your market, your problem, and what is actually achievable. Okay. So I can say that, okay, I'll be able to capture 20% of this market. That means I'll be able to cater to 1 lakh industries, 1 lakh into 10,000 rupees. That is my market that I'm looking at in the next 18 to 24 months. This is a very realistic discussion compared to it's a $500 million market, wherein the opposite person gets no idea about uh, what is the actual market that you'll be able to serve, what is your capacity in terms of the market share that you'll be able to capture. So again, coming back to the point, pivot, proceed, or proceed or persevere. Okay, so I'll say again, don't fall in love with the idea or the product or the solution that you're building. Okay, it's a trap. I understand the emotions. I have built technologies. Now I sell technologies. I create strategies. I fell in love with the products that I've built, and I've seen them fail. Okay. So I would love you guys to not make those same mistakes again. While you do your initial customer interactions and interviews, if you don't find anything tangible or valuable that the customer feels would be delivered from your end, make that hard call of pivoting. It will save you a lot of time, money, and the emotional turmoil that you'll have to go through. Okay. So if you identify that the pain is not so big, or the customers don't have budget for that, or it's just a nice to have thing, pivot. If you find uh, a signal of repeated patterns that there is definitely a problem, almost all of the discussions, or let's say 70% of the discussions which I had with the customers talked about the same problem, and they have shown interest directly or indirectly to have that problem solved. I think that's somewhere you can proceed and persevere wherever you start getting LOIs, or you've done some pilots and you're talking about converting them into large scale implementations, or you have early tractions and the inquiries are coming in more and more. That is where I would say try and scale up. Okay, so I think the final takeaways from this whole presentation is real problems create real companies. So if you can't explain to anybody about the problem that you're trying to solve in the simplest possible manner to, let's say, an engineer or non-engineer, I think there's a problem, a problem in the idea that you're working on. So rather make it your problem to identify and curate the right problem statement. Okay. Um, Interviews that you will conduct, they will reveal truth if you conduct the interviews rightly. Those are not your brainstorming sessions. You have to be a very, very good listener. Okay. Don't try and give your inputs. Rather, ask small questions and get the answers. Okay. And MVP is just a initial value creator. It's not the vision. You might want to build something extensively huge, but then you'll have to start somewhere, somewhere with something small. Okay. So rather than talking about 100 million or billion or 10 billion, talk about 1 million, or let's say $100,000 as well. That's okay. It's okay to start small. You can dream big. And you don't have to pay to dream big, but start small with extreme clarity. So I think that's it from my end. I'm open for questions. I'll try and look for the messages. Just a minute.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for a very insightful session. So now we'll open up the session for Q&A. All of you can please drop in your questions on the chat so that we could read it out.
So Ria, what's the doubt that you have?
She hasn't posted. There's one question. To build MVP, the technology is complex and is related to software building. However, I only have initial ideas of how to build the model that is MVP.
Whosoever has mentioned it, Aniket, right? So see, again, the whole point is trying to simplify. If you could talk about something that you're trying to build, I think I will be able to be more specific about the answer to this. Okay, so rather I'll try and give an example. Let's say you're trying to build a software which will automate the whole, let's say, a data collection process or internal processes of a company. Okay, and it will cater to, let's say, all the possible systems out there uh, in a large scale industry. Okay, now that's a huge problem statement. Having a product or a software built that is fully compliant and everything. Okay, yeah, I think you mentioned that you're trying to build something like Zomato. Okay, uh, Zomato caters to all possible types of food. Uh, I'd say nowadays there are very simple tools available wherein you don't even have to build a website completely from the scratch. Use Wix or let's say Zoho sites or a lot of other tools wherein you simply list your products or create a simple platform and start the initial transactions. And rather than going for a pan India deployment, let's say if you're staying in a particular region in a particular city, do that. Uh, I'll give you an example of, let's say, Zepto. How did Zepto start? In that case, what was both the founders were back in India during the vacation, and they saw that okay, there's a problem wherein during COVID it was difficult to get items. So they simply created not even a website, they simply or an app, they simply created a WhatsApp group and started taking orders. As soon as they got orders, they personally ran to the shops, Kirana stores, bought the items and delivered it to them. So today Zepto is an extensive mobile app with an extensive backend, but it all started with a simple WhatsApp group. Okay. New product in an industry that doesn't exist, for example, a jetpack. How can you finalize the budget aspect? Okay. So, Darshil, your question is you have a new product, something like a jetpack. How do you finalize a budget aspect? So, you're talking about the budget required to build the product, or at what price do you sell it at? Okay. At the price that you sell. Okay, so again, there's no answer that I have right now. First of all, you'll have to identify who's going to buy those jetpacks. Okay, let's say the jetpacks are to be bought by corporate leaders who want to travel from one place to another place in Mumbai very easily since there's dense traffic out there. Um, so, what are the current means that they use? Either they're going via their personal cars, or some of them are using the personal choppers to go from one place to another. What's a cost for that? One is an actual cost that they're paying for the chopper or the car, literally in financial terms. The other is the time aspect. Let's say someone is spending 1.5, 2 hours a day to again reach their place. A jetpack is going to solve that problem by cutting that time down to 10 minutes. Okay. So now in that case, all of a sudden you have to think about the time value of the customer in place. Uh, so that is the approach that you will have to use. But then to come to an exact number, you will have to talk with possible customers who fit in your customer persona, and you'll get an idea about what is the value of their time that they perceive. Someone might perceive that, hey, an hour of mine is worth 5 lakh rupees. Okay, that's an answer, sir. I'll give you something for let's say 3 lakh rupees, and that will solve your problem. That's a good start. I have a view about an idea like nowadays everything is digitalized, but most of the local shops are not even visible on Google Maps. So what do you think, sir? I think again, I'm not going to answer something directly. My opinion is something that doesn't matter. Rather, the opinion of those smaller shops is something that matters. What I can suggest is just get out on the streets, talk with a possible 500, 700 different small store owners, talk to them about having their store on the Google Maps, whether they would want that, or if they don't, why not? And that will give you a fair idea about how critical is the problem. Hold on. Okay. So see again, Blinkit is all Blinkit, Zepto. These are similar things. If you want to do something like that, you can start off with a simple WhatsApp group as your MVP. Uh, so honestly, I don't care about how good a website like Blinkit or Zepto is initially. What I care about is 10 minutes delivery. Um, Even if someone takes my order on WhatsApp and delivers me within 10 minutes, I'm a satisfied customer. Okay, so start off with that. Uh, you're talking about a super app. I think there are a lot of super apps in place. Now, in this case, who are you solving the problem for? Let's say if I'm the customer who's going to use your super app, I'll look at multiple aspects, whether are you the one who's honestly going to get me the best price. For example, there are websites to identify the cheapest airfare prices. So a lot of people yet want to go down to the exact website like Make My Trip or Clear Trip and book their flights there rather than booking from a common super app. So again, something that we have to talk with a lot of customers in the particular space. For a B2B sales, buyers are large organizations, but end users are someone else. Example, SAP. How can we get to know um, each? Sorry. How can we get to know exact pain points of end customers? You will have to interact, get out of your offices, get out of your chairs, visit some plants, figure out a way to get into plants, talk with the people on the shop floor, identify their on-ground problems, talk with the management team and try and understand the value of those problems. Okay, there's no other approach. You'll have to go out and meet people. You might end up building a software, a completely software product, which will be solving the problem, but then you need to get your hands dirty to identify the depth and the precision of the problem. Okay. What if it's on the gender scale, which might at first be a bit irrelevant than other. See, again, rather than the MVP being small, I would say the MVP has to be very specific. You don't want to solve for everybody. You want to solve. So if you have a very specific set of customers or type of users for whom you want to solve your problem, I would say focus on them. Don't try and go generic. Rather, out of the 5 problems that your specific set of customer persona people have, focus on 1 or 2 uh, top problems in those cases and solve for that rather than going general. Going focused is always the correct approach rather than going generalist. Should pricing be based on cost, customer value, or future potential when introducing a new technology? So see, there's no fixed answer to this. I would say you can always try starting with the value deliverance. Let's say if you're delivering something worth 10 lakh, which solves a problem worth 10 lakh rupees, try and look for a percentage that you charge 50% of that 5 lakh rupees. Okay. So if you are the only, let's say, supplier of that particular solution or product, you will be able to get initial traction at with such pricing mechanism, but then eventually competition will start coming in. So that is where you'll have to bear the market adjustment, wherein let's say you started selling that for 5 lakh rupees. Someone else came in and saw that, hey, the cost of doing this is just 50,000 rupees. My competitor who's already there in the market is selling for 5 lakh rupees. I'll break his market and I'll start selling for 2.5 lakh rupees. And yet I'm making 5 times my cost. So this will start happening. So eventually you will have to settle with a mix of cost plus and value deliverance, a mix of both in terms of pricing. Patients find it difficult to get blood in my city and rural areas. I want to find a solution, but I'm struggling with what questions I should ask to hospitals, blood banks. I also don't know how to find patients who face this problem. Okay. So Neil, what you'll have to do is again, this is more for suggestion. Try and reach out to nearby blood banks. I understand that there are very visit few of them in nearby localities or nearby cities, understand their problem statement, understand their process, that how much blood do they store, what all, let's say, blood groups they have, how do they bring in blood, and then how do they supply it, on what basis do they supply it further. Okay, understand their processes and systems first, then you can ask them about their possible patients, wherein who have taken blood from those blood banks, and talk to them about what was their process, what problems did they face, and probably that is when you get some gist about how the whole scenario is operating, and then possibly you'll be able to think about a solution. But then this is a huge social problem. Typically, people in tier one don't think about it, but then tier three and rural areas have a massive, massive problem on this front. So it's an exciting place to work on. What platform did you start with initially, and how did you know that your problem statement really mattered to the customer? Okay, so I think again, as I mentioned, I failed in my first venture, but then it did teach me a lot of things. I got the chance to build a lot of connections in the industry. I got a chance to travel across the globe in terms of understanding what's happening across the globe. Uh, and during all these activities, I was fortunate enough to talk with a lot of industry owners, people who worked in different types of industries, the different OEMs for, let's say, water meters, and then I could feel that okay, people do have a need for AI and IoT, but then the problem is they don't understand what that is. And uh, again, whatever is available out there in the market is very complex. So rather than talking about whether the product would work or not, there's a huge fear amongst the uh, users. So I think that is something that we could identify as a gist, and we started with a simple mission that we want to simplify this for everybody. नो कोडिंग नथिंग। सर आपको ये कंप्लायंस मीट करना है, मैं आपको ये डिब्बा देता हूँ, मेरा डिब्बा डिब्बा आप अपने मीटर के साथ कनेक्ट करिए, पावर ऑन करिए, आपका कंप्लायंस हो जाएगा। ओके, एज सिंपल एज दैट। उसमें कैसे बिल्ड करा? ऑफ कोर्स वी केम विद प्रायर एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ डिजाइनिंग इलेक्ट्रॉनिक प्रोडक्ट्स, and on the software front there are a lot of tools and open source codes available which we started off with. And though we started off with those bare minimum things, we build extensively on top of that. So yeah, in terms of platforms, I think we've been using AWS, and now we also explore uh, IBM. Again, we look at Google Cloud as well. We look for credits that you can gain early on to reduce your costs. How do startups manage financial risk when product success is uncertain? रिस्क है तो इसके यार, सो थोड़ा तो रिस्क लेना पड़ेगा. So that is why the whole discussion for today, market research. Market research is very important. It can help you save yourselves from the mistakes that you'll end up making. And my friends, there's no certainty. Nobody can say that 100% this will work. Okay. All you can do is take calculated risks. And for that, you need data. For data, you will have to get out in the market, do some market research, gather data, think about that, and then proceed to minimize your risk.
I think we can take up the rest of them in the query form that will come up.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so
But
much, sir, for the insightful words and guiding all the students for the rest of the bootcamp.
sure. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for being the lovely audience today. Love the question. And best of luck. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to help. Bye.
Now, yeah, thank you. So now moving on with the session. We would like to announce that the assignment 1 deadline has been extended till 15th December 11:59 p.m. So make sure that all of you are submitting the assignment. And also moving on. So the second assignment is live. So you can all submit it, and the deadline is till 20th December 11:59. And also the next third session will be on 20th December. Meet you all at 5 p.m. next Saturday. So I hope if there are any other queries, please fill the form, and don't forget to submit all of your assignments and also attend the sessions. Thank you everyone for joining.